Alright, so this is my view. This is Washington State. Off to my left, we got some moss growing on some old branches, or older branches. There are really quite a few of them are pretty young. That moss, it just grows on everything. We got ferns. I think there's like 6 different varieties that are supposed to be indigenous to the area. I don't know. I went to Lincoln High School here in Tacoma. I got to learn a little bit about Washington State history, and that's pretty mandatory any school you go to. You have to learn your state history a little bit. Except Nebraska. I don't remember having that class in Nebraska. Um, there are lots and lots of trees here. Of course, that depends on what you're comparing it with, because a little further east, there's a whole bunch of them, all tightly packed. That's a beautiful picture. That's a beautiful picture. That is a wonderful picture. How about that picture? What about that one? How about right there? Is that not gorgeous? Next up, oh yeah. The whole thing looks absolutely quaint. Right on down to the little break in the fence right there. One thing about my castle that I always put into it, I never thought of it like a medieval castle. I always thought of it as a garden, like the Hanging Gardens of Babylon. So I learned ancient technologies and how the ancients might have done things. A lot of the stuff that was rope driven, like I believe they're called the Velarum. It's the basically the tarp that covers the crowd of the arena or the Colosseum. That was actually 2 Greek amphitheaters put together. That's all it was. It was built as an acoustic speaker. If you look at the shape of the speaker today, you'll get it. That's why when you look at the pictures, the middle of the arena seems slightly domed. That's because the sound is meant to refract back at you. I like it here quite a bit. They've got a lot of wild blackberries. You can find apples growing occasionally. Peaches are probably not going to grow here. I don't know. It does get pretty humid in some of these back areas. But this is not a back area. This is the middle of the city. Isn't that strange? But this is what a lot of Washington State looks like. It's just thicker. Now, when I designed my castle, I always thought, if it's rope driven, then it can also be powered by the wind. There's a way to use the wind and harness the wind. Oh God, and even here, there's a condom. Dog bless America. What I want to do is basically build a small Roman marching fort. And instead of Taking it down in the morning, I want to grow food on the walls. On the top of the walls, they're just dirt ramparts. It's basically a ramp made out of dirt. And then the inside wall is basically, if you can imagine, dirt stairs. You put a stone retaining wall against it for each tier. Basically make it so that right after harvest you've got seating. It's difficult to explain, but it's something I spent most of my life trying to figure out how to do. Even if I had to do it with trash, even if I had to do it out on the ocean or in a desert, I tried to figure out every possible way to make this thing in whatever terrain that I could get for cheap as shit. And I almost had that. Quite a few times, actually. The problem is, life is expensive. It's really expensive. And sometimes you don't realize that your overhead, the cost of living, it's more than most of us can handle. There's a lot of people with sensory overload issues that are homeless or in otherwise worse conditions, and about to become homeless as soon as they turn 18. So, this ain't... Here's some trees that fell across. Some people painted them up. I think it's kind of cute. They have some molds here that grow that are all sorts of different colors. Bright yellow and purple and red and orange and even blue. They got some... The blue stuff is weird looking because sometimes it grows like a white crust on it. Isn't that nice? It's got lots of pokies. They got stinging nettles out here. Those are no fun whatsoever. This is a commonly walked trail, so although I am completely surrounded by blackberries at any point in time, I do not get to stop and eat any. You never know, after 4th of July, who might have gotten drunk and peed where. And like I said, middle of the city. There's a mushroom somebody probably should not have taken a bite out of. I hope they didn't end up in the hospital. Let's hope it's not poisonous. But it gets really wet up here. Look at that. You know what that kind of looks like? God, what is that movie? Oh man, it's with the big worms. Dune. Or what's the other one that's got the worms in it? It's got hell, it don't matter. It's still a cool looking tree trunk. So when I was living up here, oh, the spores on the bottom. These are so cool. Oh, doesn't that remind you of an octopus? They're pretty cool. Up close, they're even more cool than that. We got stuff all over here with moss growing on it, up and down it. I'm probably going to sneeze here shortly. Look at that. There's like 6 different types of moss right there in that picture. And have wonderful spring. No Benadryl. That's a blackberry. It's just not developed quite yet. There's some more growing right there. My idea was to put, oh, look at those. Bum ba bum. We've got food. but you can't live on blackberries alone. So on the outside wall, because blackberries have all sorts of pokies and unpleasantries, you stick them on the outside. Basically, you're just making a dirt hill that's in a square shape and living in it. I mean, there's a lot of different things you can do to grow the food. They've got stinging nettles here, like I said, so since you're basically digging a trench in the shape of a square and throwing all the dirt towards the inside to make a wall, it's not a straight up and down wall. It's at an angle, like an Egyptian pyramid. And, oh, clove honey, I forgot about that. And look at these beautiful little things. Kind of looks like something from, I don't know, Super Mario Brothers, or maybe Little Shop of Horrors, for those of you that are old enough to remember that. I guess some parts of it, especially at night, can come across as creepy in an Addams Family kind of way. But see here, you probably can't tell, but about 30 feet away, it starts dropping off sheer. I mean, in that picture, you can see ferns up close to me, and you can see tops of the trees near what looks like the bottom of these trees. There's a better way to look at it. You can see the extreme angle of it. Well, not really. It actually looks a lot more shallow in the pictures. But a castle is a place for safety or defense. It's a residence, specifically, more so than a military fortification. If it was a military fortification, we do call it a fortress, and they did the same thing back then. If it's a residency, or a royal residence, then it's a castle because it's your own private dwelling. It's your house. This area right here, because of the way the terrain is specifically cut out, it would be beautiful for such a thing. Like just a little small version, maybe 30 feet across on the inside, just big enough to show the concept. And then since you're able to grow a lot of different vines, we'll see what we can come up with here shortly, because I know for a fact right here, oh yes. Okay, well check this out. That's the forest, right? No, we're gonna pitch it downward, 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 downward. Lean her out so you guys can see. It's just straight down. Boom. But then they got a lot of restrictive laws up here that you want to pay attention to. Ah, more blackberries. See, that's good food. It'll help to attract animals, and since you've got an outside ditch, you can basically terraform it so that any animal that tries to go over there and eat your berries falls into a very humane trap. Whereas they are engrossed in food and foliage and luxuries galore because this place is wonderful. And then, let's say you get some rabbits. Well, there are ways to scare off predators in these here areas. And if you get some rabbits in there, into your trench, and get them to live down there and breed, then you're getting some food out of them at least 3 to 4 times annually. And that may not seem like a lot, but it really depends on the size of the fortification. or rather the size of the military house. But the whole idea behind it is offense through defense. Like the idea that before you can control the land, you have to control the castle. If you can control the castle, then it signifies that you control the land around it. You can march out of there whenever you want. But then again, the Americans and the island... Sorry, I have a speech impediment. The Americans and their island hopping showed that that is not the case. That is a myth. For every military rule, there is an exception. And there is no exception. So, for me, there absolutely is an exception. If it costs human lives, then it's not okay. It needs to stop. As far as defense goes, I figure if somebody digs themselves a defensive hole and is able to sustain the life which they breathe and live every day off of that land, I don't think it's anybody's business to come tell them what to do, and especially not to use force against them. If your society won't accept certain people, well, those certain people should be allowed the chance to prove that, hey, just leave me the fuck alone and be alright. But no, people who don't have property and don't have land are less than animals to most of American society. Even to many people who have been there, who tell themselves, oh, well, you know, everybody I knew while I was homeless was a junkie or a meth head or a drunk or... But then, when you go down and you really look at it, that shows you what crowd they were hanging out in. Shows you who they were hanging out with, who was taking all their money, where it was being spent. And they say, and I didn't do nothing but give and give and give and give. And I'm like, you know, I don't remember you giving to me. I remember you spending all of your money to go get messed up on whatever drug it is that you wanted to get messed up on, and me having to babysit your dumb ass because the cops didn't come out and get you. Did I call the cops to come out and get you? No. But you were acting dumb enough that they should have. And that's a lot of the people that I know because of the whole issue of not being able to take care of myself. As far as the finances go, I mean, I'm different. A lot of people hate what's different. They make excuses to run away or step away or... Well, you know the routine. And I always thought, well, if somebody's too cool to hang out with me, that's fine. I'm cool enough to hang out with me. I'll be good to everybody. Oh, look at that. That is beautiful. Oh. That is seriously the way that a tree grew. Okay? This is no joke. I've had people tell me that there's fairies down here and they've seen the green man and oh, there he is. Right there underneath. If you use your imagination. Let's get up closer to this. I'm not sure if it's allowed to get off the trail this far, but I'll point it out for you. Right there is this mustache. There's his nose. There's an eye. Here's his hat. There's his beard. All right. Anyway, that's just using your imagination. I know there's... Oh my God, that hurt. There's a lot of people with no imaginations, and I feel bad for them. But, Albert Einstein, Tesla, Da Vinci. There were very, very few intelligent, stupid geniuses in history that did not believe that their imagination was more important than the math. And they were all correct, actually. It may not work without the math, but without the imagination, you're never going to come up with the math. Ah, here's another good one. Kind of reminds me of an elephant, actually. I'll show you how. All right. See where my finger is pointing to? We'll pretend that's an eyeball. And right there is the outline of the trunk. He's got kind of a funky head, though. Right here is part of the ear. And then right here is the leg. I don't know. It's kind of like looking at clouds. Everybody sees something different. All right. Now down there is, we'll take a look. Looks like a dry riverbed. It is. Very nice.